I've worked night shifts for years now, and anyone who does will tell you the same thing. The drive home is the worst part. Not because it's long, mine's only about 18 minutes, not because of traffic. At almost 2 in the morning, the roads are empty. It's the silence. That bone-deep, unnatural kind of silence that only exists after midnight, when the world feels abandoned. When sound doesn't echo, it just disappears. When every red light feels like a spotlight aimed right at you, isolating you, making you notice things you normally wouldn't. And on this particular night, something felt off before I even left the parking lot. Not wrong, not dangerous, just wrong enough that my instincts whispered that I should pay attention. I clocked out a little past 1:40 a.m., rubbing my eyes, trying to shake off the crushing exhaustion. My legs felt heavy, my hands shaky, and my hoodie still smelled like cardboard and coolant from the warehouse. But that wasn't what bothered me. It was the feeling, that prickly sensation between the shoulder blades, like someone was standing too close behind me, watching me walk to my car. I kept glancing over my shoulder at the empty lot, half expecting to see someone frozen under the lights, staring at me. But it was just rows of parked cars and the hum of the sodium lamps buzzing overhead. When I got into my car, that sensation didn't fade. It intensified. The moment I shut the door, it felt like I had stepped into a room where someone had just been. You know that weird leftover presence? The faint warmth? The slight smell of breath in the air? It felt like that, except colder. I sat there for a moment, both hands on the wheel, staring into the windshield and trying to steady my breathing. My chest felt tight for no reason, and my heart was beating way too fast for how tired I was. "Relax," I whispered to myself. "Just go home." I started the engine, the radio stayed off, the heater stayed silent, and the feeling of being watched only grew stronger. The first 3 minutes of the drive were normal enough. The streets were dead, the sky was clear, and the only sound was the engine rumbling beneath me. But then I hit the first red light. As I rolled to a stop, everything went unnaturally still. Even the engine felt quieter. The silence felt heavy, like a weight pressing on my ears. My skin prickled and every hair on my arms lifted as if reacting to something I couldn't see. I stared straight ahead, refusing to look in the mirror. The light turned green. I didn't move. I don't know why. Some instinct locked my body in place. A cold, creeping dread poured down my spine like ice water. Finally, I forced myself to glance into the rear view. Just a quick glance, a half-second flick of the eyes. But I froze. Because for that half-second, I saw it. A shape. A figure. A silhouette hunched low behind the driver's seat, head bowed forward in the dark. My breath hitched so hard my chest hurt. I whipped my head around so violently my neck popped. No one was there, just my crumpled work jacket and 2 crushed water bottles rolling around on the floor. I forced myself to laugh, a tired, shaky sound. "Get it together," I muttered. But the thing about fear is that once it gets its claws in you, it doesn't let go easily. I kept driving, another red light, another stretch of empty road. The tension slowly eased until my phone buzzed, a Bluetooth notification. I frowned and looked down. New device connected, Pixel Buds. My stomach dropped. That didn't make sense. I don't own Pixel Buds. I've never owned Pixel Buds. And my Bluetooth is always off. Before I could even react, the stereo screen flickered. Radio, Bluetooth, unknown device, static. And then, through the speakers, breathing. Not mine, not the car's AC. A slow, deep inhale, followed by a long, shaky exhale, like someone was sitting inches from a microphone. The wheel shook from how hard I gripped it. My pulse started pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. I looked in the mirror. Nothing. But the breathing kept going. Closer, louder, more desperate. I slammed my thumb onto the radio power button. It didn't turn off. I tried the volume knob. It didn't budge. The breathing just got louder, ragged, wet, almost congested. My throat tightened and tears burned my eyes. Panic rose so fast I felt lightheaded. I veered into an empty parking lot and threw the car into park. Still breathing, still in the speakers, still in the Bluetooth menu. I opened my door so fast I nearly fell out, and the second I stepped out of the car, the breathing stopped, cut off mid-inhale. I ran around the car, flinging every door open. Back seat, empty. Trunk, empty. Floors, clear. Under the seats, nothing. But the smell, God, the smell. Warm breath, human breath, right in my face, like someone had been crouched behind me for a long time, close enough to whisper against my neck. My eyes stung from how strong it was. I backed away, gagging slightly. My whole body was shaking, my hands ice cold despite the heater being on minutes ago. My heart wouldn't slow down. After 10 minutes of pacing outside the car, I finally forced myself back inside and shut all the doors. I locked them instantly. The radio was silent now, the Bluetooth menu empty. Everything looked normal, but I didn't feel normal. I drove the rest of the way home with both hands clenched on the wheel and every interior light turned on. I kept scanning the rearview mirror every few seconds, even though I knew I wouldn't see anything. But the feeling, that suffocating, heavy, invisible pressure in the car, it was still there. Like someone was sitting behind me, leaning forward, breathing over my shoulder without making a sound. I didn't take a single stop sign fully, didn't wait at a single light longer than I needed to. I think I broke half the traffic laws on the way home, but all I could think about was getting out of the car. When I finally pulled into my apartment lot, I practically stumbled out of the vehicle. I went inside, locked the door, locked it again, then shoved my couch against it just in case I sat on the edge of my bed, legs shaking uncontrollably. And then my phone buzzed, an unfamiliar device in the Bluetooth list, the same Pixel Buds. But the name wasn't the same anymore. Someone, or something, renamed it. The device name was now, I'm Still Here. And the timestamp on the rename, exactly 18 minutes ago, the same length as my drive home. But here's the part that still makes my skin crawl every time I think about it. When I went to my car the next morning, the windows were fogged from the inside, not evenly, not messy, just one single outline. A large, distorted handprint dragged down the rear passenger window, long fingers, wide palm, pressed from the inside. And it wasn't mine. I haven't driven alone at night since. I don't think I ever will again. I didn't realize how strange my apartment building was until my second year living there. Before that, it was just an old place with peeling paint, buzzing hallway lights, and a landlord who took 3 days to answer a text. Pretty normal. But the apartment above me, 3B, was always different. I used to joke that it was cursed, but I didn't really believe it, not until everything started happening. It began with the man who lived there before. He was quiet. I barely saw him, maybe 2 or 3 times in a whole year. Always looked tired, always walked fast, like someone following him was just out of sight. He moved out one random Tuesday afternoon. No announcement, no goodbye, no moving truck. When I came home that night, the door to 3B was shut with a strip of blue painter's tape across it. I remember thinking it looked like crime scene tape's cheap cousin. The tape stayed there for days, then weeks, then a full month. Every time I walked up the stairs or collected my mail, I'd see it, perfectly unbroken, perfectly straight. No one went in, no one came out. And yet, one night, around 2 a.m., I woke up to footsteps above me. They were heavy, slow, intentional, like someone pacing from one end of the room to the other. The floorboards creaked with every step. At first, I thought maybe the landlord was checking the place late, or the guy had come back for something. But the next morning, the tape on the door was still totally intact, untouched. Nobody had opened the door. Nobody had walked inside. So where were the footsteps coming from? I spent that day coming up with explanations. Old buildings make noise. Pipes expand, floors shift. Maybe a stray cat somehow got into the ceiling. But none of those excuses held up at 2 a.m. that night when the footsteps came again. Same exact time, same pacing, back and forth, over and over. Then came the dragging sound. It was subtle at first, like something sliding along the floor, but the more I listened, the more it sounded like someone dragging heavy furniture inch by inch, long, groaning scrapes. I stared at my ceiling, eyes wide open, gripping the blanket like it would help somehow. I kept waiting for the sound to stop. It went on for over an hour. When it finally did, the silence was so abrupt it made my ears ring. And then came one single, loud thud, like something huge had fallen over. or collapsed. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning, I forced myself upstairs. I don't know what I thought I'd see. Maybe signs of forced entry, broken tape, footprints, something. But when I reached the door to 3B, the blue strip was still there, perfectly straight. It had not been opened. That made the footsteps worse somehow. If I had seen the tape ripped off, I could have blamed squatters, or the landlord, or literally anyone human. But the tape was untouched. My pulse spiked as I stared at it. The hallway was silent. That weird, stale type of silence that makes you feel like the walls are holding their breath. I leaned in and pressed my ear against the door. For a full minute, I heard nothing. I exhaled, relieved, and stepped away. That's when I heard it. 3 soft taps from the other side of the door. My body locked up. Every hair on my neck stood straight. The taps weren't random. They were slow, spaced out, intentional. I shouldn't have done it, but I knocked back. Just one gentle knock. The response came instantly. 6 rapid, violent knocks from inside, each one harder than the last. The door trembled. Dust fell from the top of the frame. I ran. I don't even remember getting down the stairs. My brain was static, pure adrenaline. I slammed inside my own apartment, locked the door, then shoved the kitchen chair under the knob, even though I knew nobody could get in without breaking the tape upstairs. I didn't sleep for 2 nights. Eventually, I decided to talk to one of the longtime residents, an older woman who lived at the end of the hall. She always smiled politely when we crossed paths, but never talked much. When I asked her about 3B, her smile faded instantly. She told me that before the building became apartments, that entire floor looked different. There used to be a small maintenance corridor between 3A and 3B, basically a narrow passage where the old building stored wiring and plumbing access points. When they renovated, they didn't demolish the corridor, they sealed it, meaning there was now a completely inaccessible dark space, maybe 2 feet wide, running behind the walls of 3B. A void. Then she said the last 3 tenants in 3B all moved out within months. All of them complained about sounds coming from inside the walls, not the ceiling, not the floor, the walls, specifically the bedroom closet wall. I'd never moved away from a conversation faster. That night I decided to stay awake. I made coffee, turned on a movie, kept the lights on, but at exactly 2:03 a.m. the footsteps started again. Except this time, they weren't above me. They were closer, slower, heavier. I muted the TV and just listened. The pacing was now directly above my living room, moving in a tight loop. My ceiling light shook slightly with each step. Then the dragging came again. But it wasn't furniture. It was softer, more organic. A slow body-dragging sound, like skin scraping across wood. Then I heard breathing. Harsh, labored breathing, like someone was pressing their mouth right against the ceiling. The kind of breathing people make when they're trying not to cry. Wet, trembling breaths. I backed up across the room without taking my eyes off the ceiling. Something thumped just above me. Not a full step, not a fall. Just a quick, sudden impact, like someone trying to get down but failing, or someone dropping to their hands and knees. Then came a new sound. Scratching. Slow, deliberate scratching. Right above me. I pressed my palms against my ears and tried not to scream. I don't know how long it lasted. Maybe 5 minutes, maybe 30. But suddenly, it all went silent at once. The footsteps, the dragging, the breathing, everything. I should have felt relieved, but silence in that building is never a good thing. The next morning on my way to work, I forced myself up the stairs to 3B, heart pounding. I had this awful gut feeling something changed, and I was right. The blue tape wasn't straight anymore. It sagged in the middle, slightly torn, but the rip didn't come from the outside. It bowed outward, like someone had pulled it from inside the apartment and pushed the door outward just enough to break the seal. I stepped back immediately. My throat felt like it was closing. I turned to walk away, but a soft tapping sound came from the apartment, not on the door. Behind the wall next to it, tap, 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 rhythmic, patient, almost polite. I left the building for the whole day, didn't even go home during my lunch break. I couldn't stand the thought of being inside while that thing, was also inside those walls. That night, I slept on my couch with the TV volume low and every light on. I don't know when I actually fell asleep, but a sound woke me up at 3:12 a.m. Whispering, fast, frantic whispering, coming from directly above my couch. I froze. I didn't even blink. The whispering didn't sound like a single voice. It sounded layered, like more than one person whispering at once, but all in the same rhythm, overlapping. Then, all at once, the whispering stopped. Something slid across the ceiling, slowly, deliberately, until it was directly above my bedroom door. Then, I heard soft thumps in my hallway. Not footsteps, drops, like someone was lowering themselves down, one limb at a time. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. I stared at my hallway, waiting to see something appear there. Nothing did. But the air in my apartment felt wrong, heavy, wet, like someone was standing inches from me even though I couldn't see them. The next morning, when I left for work, I barely looked up the stairs. But as I passed the door to 3B, I saw something on the floor. Dust, bits of drywall, and a long smear of fingerprints dragging away from the door. Not handprints, fingerprints, like someone crawled out on their hands. The blue tape was gone completely. The door was shut, locked from the inside. I don't sleep much anymore. I hear things in the hallway late at night, slow steps and dragging sounds. They stop right outside my door every time, like whatever is inside 3B is still trying to figure out which wall leads to me. And sometimes, when the building is dead silent, I swear I hear breathing in my bedroom closet. Not loud, not aggressive, just waiting. I grew up on the outskirts of a small town where the nearest neighbor was a quarter-mile away, and the nights were so dark you couldn't see your hand in front of your face unless the moon was full. People romanticize living out in the country, but they don't understand what absolute silence does to a person. When you live far enough out, you stop hearing cars, voices, sirens, anything human. The only thing that exists is what lives in the woods. County Road 16 was the kind of road that almost begged you to be afraid. Trees on both sides were dense and old, their branches bent over like skeletal fingers clawing at the sky. Fog settled thickly over the gravel in late fall, so thick you could barely see 20 feet ahead. Power lines ran along one side of the road, leaning slightly with age, creaking and groaning in the wind. Everyone in town knew better than to drive it after dark. Everyone except me. When I was 16, I got my driver's license and thought I was untouchable. I had a rusted Chevy my uncle gave me. The thing rattled, smelled like gasoline, and roared like a dying animal when I floored it. But to me, it was freedom. The first night I drove it alone down County Road 16, I felt the kind of thrill only 16-year-olds get when they think nothing in the world can hurt them. It started about halfway home. The fog was thick, the moon hidden behind clouds, and the headlights barely cut through the darkness. That's when I saw it. A tall, thin silhouette standing in the ditch along the side of the road. At first I thought it was a deer, but no deer stands upright. The figure didn't move, didn't sway, didn't twitch. Its head tilted slightly upward, as if it was watching me, studying me. I slammed my foot on the brakes, slowing way too fast, my hands shaking. My heart slammed against my ribs. When I passed, I thought maybe it was a trick of the fog, the branches, my imagination. But then, in my rearview mirror, I saw it. The figure hadn't moved. It was still there, watching. I made it home in record time. I locked every door and window, doubled the locks, and didn't sleep that night. I convinced myself I imagined it. Fog, shadows, exhaustion, that had to be it. The next night, the figure was closer. I didn't drive this time. I stayed home, windows shut, curtains drawn. Around 11:30 p.m., I heard a faint crunching of gravel outside. My bedroom faced the front yard, 40 feet from the tree line. Normally, all I'd hear were crickets, owls, the occasional distant train. This was different. It was deliberate, rhythmic, slow, measured. I leaned against the blinds and peeked through. At first, I didn't see anything. Then the shadow moved into view, stepping onto the driveway. It was the same creature, impossibly tall, unnaturally thin, limbs hanging too low, head cocked slightly. I couldn't see a face, only a suggestion of one. My stomach turned. I wanted to scream but couldn't. I couldn't even breathe. It stood there for nearly 15 minutes, completely still, just listening, waiting, studying. Eventually, it retreated back to the edge of the woods. I stayed awake until dawn, never daring to move. The sightings didn't stop. In the following weeks, neighbors reported similar experiences: shadows at the edge of the tree line, strange, slow footsteps on gravel, heavy breathing outside windows, things standing motionless watching them. Nobody could explain it. The sheriff said it was probably a deer or an escaped dog, but the tracks they found didn't match any animal. They were enormous, almost 2 feet long, with long indentations for toes that didn't exist on any human. One night, my best friend Mark decided to prove to me there was nothing out there. He wanted to walk the road with me. Against my gut, I agreed. Around 11 p.m., we drove our bikes to the middle of the road. I remember how quiet it was, how the fog seemed to swallow sound. No wind, no insects, nothing. Just the soft crunch of our tires on gravel. We were halfway down the road when I saw it again. It stepped out from the tree line like it had been waiting for us. We froze. It didn't run. It didn't yell. It didn't make a sound, except for the faintest scraping of gravel under its feet. Its limbs were unnaturally long, each movement slow and deliberate, like it was calculating. Mark wanted to run. I wanted to run, but our legs refused. I felt like gravity itself had changed around the thing. It didn't chase us. It didn't attack. It just followed, keeping a perfect distance behind us as we pedaled in terror. Every time we turned, it was there. Every time we slowed, it slowed. We reached my driveway and bolted inside. The house door slammed behind us, and we didn't stop shaking for hours. That night, I swore I could hear it outside my bedroom window. Slow, deliberate steps. Then nothing. Silence. The kind of silence that makes your own heartbeat sound deafening. Weeks passed. The figure became bolder. Sometimes it came closer to the house. Sometimes it didn't retreat into the trees at all. Once, I saw it standing at the edge of the yard, watching my dad work outside, perfectly still, unnaturally still. My dad noticed it too, but didn't want to talk about it. I don't know if he saw the shape of the head tilted upward, the impossibly long limbs, or the way it moved like a predator calculating every motion. One night, I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed my dad's old hunting rifle and waited on the porch, heart thundering. The fog rolled in heavier than usual. Hours passed. Then, at 2:17 a.m., I saw it emerge from the woods, slow, calculated, limbs almost dragging. I raised the rifle and fired. The thing didn't flinch. It didn't even react. The bullets hit, but it didn't fall. The rounds struck the body, and the figure recoiled slightly but never disappeared. Its head tilted toward me, and I swear I felt it smile. Not a human. Smile. Something wrong. Something unnatural. I ran inside. I stayed awake for 3 nights. I couldn't leave the house. Friends called, wondering why I wasn't at school. I didn't tell anyone. How do you explain seeing a 7-foot-tall shadow figure, standing perfectly still at the edge of the woods, that doesn't respond to bullets? How do you explain it following you, watching you, learning? Months later, it stopped coming near the house, but the sightings didn't stop entirely. Travelers on County Road 16 reported seeing a tall, thin shadow at the edge of the fog. Sometimes the lights of cars would illuminate the shape for a split second before it disappeared into the trees. Farmers found enormous footprints by their barns, leading from the woods to their driveways. And then one night, a neighbor called me in a panic. She said she looked out her window and saw it standing in her driveway, watching her family through the living room windows. She swore it hadn't moved when she blinked. She swore it was taller than the ceiling. She swore she could feel it thinking. I know the truth. The night watcher isn't wandering aimlessly. It isn't lost. It isn't hunting in the traditional sense. It's learning, observing, waiting for something. I still live on County Road 16. I don't drive at night. I don't step outside after dark. I keep all the lights on. And every so often, when the fog rolls in and the night is perfectly still, I hear it. Slow, deliberate footsteps on the gravel outside my window, watching, waiting, remembering. And I know it's only a matter of time before it comes back for me.